We picked up 5 of the most popular saltwater center consoles flooding the used market right now, 2020 and 2021 builds, most with under 100 hours on the engines, all priced tens of thousands below what their original owners paid. We did not just inspect them, we cut them open. We pulled the consoles, drilled inspection ports, removed the bilge panels, and ran moisture meters across every inch of fiberglass we could reach. What we found on 4 of these 5 boats should make any serious buyer furious. This is not a normal market correction. This is a structural collapse triggered by pandemic-era panic buying, reckless financing, manufacturer overconfidence, and a generation of first-time buyers who had never owned a boat in their lives. The wreckage is sitting on dealer lots, rotting in marina slips, and showing up at prices that reflect genuine financial desperation. One of these 5 boats was built so well, it almost does not belong in the same conversation as the others. Stay until the end, because that reveal is going to change how you shop. Before we get into the boats, you need to understand why this used market exists. In 2020 and 2021, U.S. powerboat sales exploded with over 310,000 new units sold in 2020 alone. First-time buyers accounted for 34% of all sales, nearly double the historical average. These were not lifelong boaters. They were remote workers and social media followers who bought boats they had never owned before, on loans they could barely afford, then stored them in saltwater slips because they did not want to pay for dry storage. By mid-2023, the entire situation reversed. Marine loan rates climbed from under 5% to between 8% and 12%. New powerboat sales declined 9.1% in 2024. Default rates on marine loans climbed from 1.3% historically to 6.8% by mid-2025. What that left behind was a coastal used market, flooded with barely used boats from owners who had no idea how to maintain them. Boat 1, Sea Hunt Ultra 254 Center Console. Sea Hunt produces hulls at volume using production molds and wood core stringers and transoms. For buyers who trailer their boats and rinse them after every trip, Sea Hunt delivers solid value. The problem is that most Sea Hunt boats flooding the used market right now were not owned by those buyers. This 2021 model came out of a saltwater marina slip in Tampa Bay with under 60 hours on the Yamaha engines, and it was priced at $34,000. We ran a moisture meter across the transom and stringer system. The transom area read between 14 and 17% moisture content. Anything above 12% is considered elevated. Below decks, the wood core stringer showed early softness when probed at the transom connection point. Wood core stringers, glassed over with fiberglass laminate, are a well-documented failure point on Sea Hunt hulls when boats sit in wet slips. Form reports going back years describe full stringer delamination events in models that never received proper bilge drainage maintenance. The repair bill to address the transom moisture and rebond the compromised stringer area would run $6,000 to $10,000 minimum. None of that was in the listing. Boat 2, Boston Whaler 230, Outrage. Boston Whaler's Unibond construction is the real thing. They inject liquid polyurethane foam between 2 fiberglass skins inside the mold. The foam expands and chemically bonds both layers, producing an extremely rigid hull that is genuinely difficult to sink. The hull on this 2020 build delivered exactly what Whaler promises. The problems were elsewhere. When we pulled the center console, we found what owners on the Hull Truth Forum have been reporting on post-Brunswick whalers for years. The console mounting system relies on a small number of fasteners into the deck substrate, and the wiring runs use zip tie routing rather than chase channels bonded into the structure. 2 of the console mounting screws had backed out, allowing the console to flex under load. The wiring showed 3 connector points with green oxidation at the terminals, and both bilge pump float switches had salt crystal buildup, locking them partially open. Boston Whaler's own maintenance documentation warns that stainless and alloy fittings require frequent cleaning, and that irreversible pitting develops when salt is left to work. That maintenance was not happening on this boat. The hull was perfect. Everything attached to it told a different story. Boat 3, Robalo R242 center console. Robalo builds a solid mid-market hull. Their hydropel vinyl ester resin resists osmotic blistering, and their laminate is hand-laid with a minimum of 7 layers of fiberglass. Where Robalo has a documented quality control problem is everywhere the camera does not look. The 2021 model we sourced was advertised as one owner with 47 hours out of a Carolina marina. When we pulled the bilge panel, we found what multiple Robalo owner forums describe as a recurring factory issue: construction debris in the bilge. Wire ties, stray hardware, and a length of cut wiring left inside the hull since the day it was built. More critically, the forward fishbox drain lines were not routed overboard. They terminated inside the bilge cavity. Every time water was flushed through those fishboxes, it drained directly into the bilge rather than over the side. Over 3 years, that chronic water introduction accelerated corrosion on the bilge pump housing and left rust staining across the fiberglass liner. This is an installation failure, not a laminate failure, but it is exactly the kind of thing that destroys a boat slowly and invisibly while it sits looking fine from 20 feet away. If this is helpful to you, be sure to subscribe. Boat 4, Scout 355 LXF. Scout builds premium offshore center consoles that are genuinely well engineered. Their 355 LXF uses a vacuum-infused hull with epoxy lamination, a fully gel-coated stringer system bonded with methyl methacrylate adhesive, and no wood core or transom plywood anywhere in the structure. The hull construction was exactly as Scout advertises, but this boat had lived on a wet slip, and the owner had not addressed a problem that is real and increasingly documented on large Scout models. There was galvanic corrosion at the interface between the aluminum T-top frame components and the stainless steel mounting hardware. In 2025, a Fort Lauderdale lawsuit against Scout boats specifically cited severe electrolysis and galvanic corrosion as fundamental design flaws on a Scout 377 LXF. The corrosion mechanism is straightforward. Aluminum and stainless steel sit far apart on the galvanic scale, and in the presence of salt water, the aluminum corrodes at every contact point. On this boat, the T-top base feet showed active corrosion working under the powder coat at 2 of the 4 mounting points. Catching it early means isolating the metals and resealing the joints. Catching it late means replacing structural mounting hardware on an offshore boat running multiple engines. Boat 5, Grady White Canyon 271. Everything wrong with the other 4 boats points directly at why Grady White has sat at the top of saltwater resale value charts for decades. The 2020 Canyon 271 we sourced had similar hours, had spent time in a coastal marina, and was being sold by an owner who needed out of the market. Priced at $162,000 against an original retail above $200,000, we ran the same moisture meter protocol across the entire hull bottom. Every reading came back between 5 and 8%. Under 8% is considered dry. Grady White's specification sheet for the Canyon 271 confirms what we found. A composite stringer system described as water impervious, built from fiberglass stringers precision patterned for each hull, bonded with hand-laid fiberglass while the hull is still in the mold, and completely encapsulated. No wood to rot, no path for water to enter. Closed-cell polyurethane. FOAM is pumped into every below-deck void, not just where Coast Guard regulations require it, but throughout the entire hull. Grady White explicitly notes on their factory documentation that foam flotation above 20 feet is not legally required, and most other brands do not bother. They do it anyway. All deck hardware is 316 grade stainless steel, through bolted, confirmed directly on the Canyon 271 spec sheet. The hatches are resin transfer, molded with a gel coat finish on both surfaces, meaning no raw fiberglass edges absorbing moisture at joint points. The hull-to-deck joint is a shoebox fit overlap secured with 316 stainless screws and marine adhesive, then capped with a stainless rube rail. Zero active corrosion on any hardware. The bilge was clean, dry, and gel coat finished. Fishbox drains ran overboard exactly as designed. This is not luck. This is construction methodology that refuses to cut corners on any detail, regardless of whether the buyer will ever see it. If you are in this market right now, the inspection protocol is non-negotiable. Moisture meter on the hull before anything else. Elevated readings above 12% require a marine surveyor before any offer is made. Pull the bilge panel and look for rust staining, construction debris, and where the drain lines actually terminate. Check every aluminum component that contacts stainless hardware for powder coat bubbling, which signals active galvanic corrosion underneath. Ask specifically whether the boat was dry stored or wet slipped, and for how much of its life. Pull maintenance records and get a compression test on every engine. A Yamaha or Mercury outboard with no documented service history at 3 or 4 years old is a liability, not a bargain. Budget for an impeller replacement regardless of what the seller tells you. Factor every deferred maintenance cost into your offer before you write a number down. 4 out of 5 of the boats we cut open had problems completely invisible on a standard walkaround. They had stringer moisture intrusion, console fastener failures, construction debris and misdirected drain lines, and galvanic corrosion at structural mounting points. All of them were dressed up in clean gel coat, showed low hours, and were listed by motivated sellers. One of them was exactly what every used boat listing claims to be, and almost never is. Every construction detail is verifiable. Every spec sheet claim is confirmed by what we found inside the hull. That gap is the most important thing you can understand about this market right now, because at current prices, the cost difference between the boat built right and the 4 that were not is smaller than it has ever been, and the cost of finding out after you buy is higher than you want to think about.